Welcome back to Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I'm here behind the camera filming my terrifying emotional support animal, this Metroid. And it has a couple things to say about this episode of Radio DMG. Radio DMG Versus. So, just listen to what it has to say. Welcome back to Radio DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I'm here at Colorado Anime Fest 2016 with
Marisha Ray. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And just in case our audience isn't familiar with who you are and what you do, who are you and what do you do?
I ask myself that question every day. I am a voice actor and actress out of Los Angeles. I'm also a host in the kind of geek sphere of the entertainment industry, and you can also see me on Geek and Sundry's Twitch show Critical Role, where a bunch of voice actors play Dungeons and Dragons on Thursday nights.
And you participate in that one, like as the
I do.
One of the players?
Yes, I am a half-elven druid named Keyleth, who's kind of the moral compass of the group that is still trying to find herself and figure out who she is. But it's a great cast filled with amazing, talented voice actors. And Matthew Mercer, another talented voice actor, is the Dungeon Master. But yeah, Liam O'Brien, Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey, just to name a few, are part of the cast. And it's quite a blast.
So, how did you get interested in this industry, the voice acting and such?
Well, I've been a video gamer and a comic book nerd my whole life. So my dad has pictures of me being 3 years old and playing Super Mario Brothers, and I could kick his ass on most games on the NES, which was great at the age of 3. And I did a lot of theater acting on the East Coast and grew up acting and doing theater, and then came out to Los Angeles, and my worlds kind of started colliding after that. So I started hosting in the video game industry and doing press work and things of that nature. And then from there, I continued with my acting, and doing host work and press work in the video game industry led me to meet a lot of people, including voice actors and directors. And then from there, I kind of made a reel, and it took off from there. Voice acting has definitely probably been the path of least resistance that I've found in Los Angeles thus far. Sometimes you just don't know until you try.
So you did a lot of video game press. Who were you with originally, like with those?
I worked for a company called hang on, wait a second. What was the name of that company? Oh, sorry. Crave Online. I started working with Crave Online first and hosted a show called The Grind for them, which was sponsored by Alienware. So I was kind of with Alienware for a little bit and was freelance for a while. I would kind of just work with different press outlets whenever they would need me. A lot of times I would go to conventions and cover conventions for them. And yeah, from there I actually ended up taking an improv class and met a lot of other people who were also in the industry just by happenstance, and made contacts and kind of went from there.
Oh, so you mentioned that like you grew up kind of in the doing a little bit of theater stuff and all that. What are some of your earliest memories of the theater? Like, do you prefer musical theater over normal theater, or what?
I prefer experimental black box theater.
Oh.
I've done a lot of musical theater, but some of my favorite productions that I've done are the ones that are in a tiny little black box theater with like 50 to 100 people seating. I love the intimacy that black box theater provides. So one of my favorite productions that I've done, I did a production of Danny and the Deep Blue Sea, where I was Roberta, which is a phenomenal play. Let's see, what else? I've done some Shakespeare in Black Box Theater, which is really fun when you take Shakespeare and kind of condense it down and make it more experimental. Then, of course, Shakespeare just lends itself to so much new ways of interpreting it. So I did a production of Midsummer Night's Dream in that way, and I worked a lot with the Actors Theater of Louisville back when I lived in Louisville, which they do the new plays every year, and they got a pretty good reputation for burgeoning actors and theater actors. And yeah, I did a lot of stuff in New York, did a few musicals in New York off Broadway. But like I said, I just really fell in love with the more intimacy of Black Box.
Which also kind of lends itself to like the improv stuff you're talking about.
It does,
right?
yeah. And I've done a lot of improv as well, which also tends to be in a more intimate setting. I like when you can feel the audience that close to you. And there is definitely a give and take in theater of energy. We feel the audience, and then the audience feels us. Every time they react, it gives us a boost.
So have you done any stand-up or anything yet? Not yet?
Stand-up is on my to-do list of things to try. I've done a lot of theater, I've done a lot of improv, which is, adjacent, I guess, but not really. There's something about stand-up where when you're there alone on that stage, raw, just telling jokes, it's a very vulnerable place. Anyone who is a talented stand-up comedian, that is not an easy job. That is not an easy job. So, I've been thinking about trying it. Going to maybe an open mic night, seeing how to do.
And speaking about difficult jobs and stuff, what do you think of Colorado Anime Fest 2016? This is their first year as a convention, and what do you think of it? What do you think of what they've done here?
For a first-year convention, it's been phenomenal. It actually doesn't even feel like a first-year convention, which I think is very impressive, because so many conventions are about camaraderie, and, it's not just about coming to see the things that you enjoy, but it's also about the community. You are surrounded by people who know and love the things that you know and love. And that, I think, is more a part of a convention than what a lot of people will give it credit for. Finding your people, you got to find your flock, and I think this convention thus far has really lent itself to that. And you're already seeing so many people group up and get together and have their hangouts afterwards, and that's what con is to me. It's like the modern day equivalent of like a church, like an anime church, is how I feel about them.
Yeah, so far I've noticed the response has been pretty good from the crowd. The only thing I've heard anybody say is that they wish there were more vendors who sold manga here. That's about it.
Interesting. I actually haven't made it down to the dealer's hall.
Oh, you haven't yet?
Oh,
you're missing out on. There's this one booth that's got like all these. They sold out of their little ice cream narwhals.
What?
Yeah, they had ice cream narwhal plushies.
Oh, that's so damn cute.
I know, right? They sold out of those really quick.
I'm sure.
They have all sorts of other things too, like alpacas and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth checking out.
I'll have to do that. Especially now that it's Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
The schedule might lend itself.
Oh, another thing to check out is the charity auction. They're doing.
Yes.
They're doing for their charity. They're covering ALS. ALS.
ASL. American Sign Language.
Yes.
ALS.
Just pretty much all I know is water.
Yeah. I know hot dog.
Yeah. And then Creed taught me that particular movie taught me all sorts of curse words for it.
Yeah.
But yeah. But ALS is the charity they're supporting here. Are there any certain charities or anything currently that you're active in or supporting?
Yes, actually. Critical Role is currently sponsoring a charity called 826 LA. Mm-hmm. And there might be an 826 branch in your city. I don't know if there's one in Denver. That'll be something to check out. But they are an after-school tutoring program that focuses on creative writing and reading. And like I said, there's probably an 826 in your area, and the cool thing about them is that every 826 tutoring center has a storefront, and each storefront is a different theme, and they just sell little tchotchkes and fun things. That it's like a great place to take a first date. It's really cute. So the one in Los Angeles, the 826 store, is themed time travel. And it's called the Time Travel Mart. And you can go and just get all sorts of little tchotchkes, nanobots in a jar,
TARDIS.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. There's one in San Francisco that I think is dinosaur themed, I think. Don't quote me on that one. And then I'm pretty sure there's one in Seattle. There's one in Chicago. The one in New York is superhero themed, which is very appropriate. But yeah, 826 is a great organization that I'm in love with. And if you don't want to donate to their cause, I implore you to go down and tutor a kid. Volunteer.
Reading and literacy is something that America's a bit behind in. We need to improve more of that.
Yes, and reading, I mean, it's so important for everything going forward. I mean, of course, knowledge is power, and they put you through arithmetic in high school that you'll never use. But reading and creativity, and just like creative writing, I think is such an important outlet and such an important skill that it doesn't matter what career choice you go into. It's important. It's important for people to still be able to use their imaginations even into adulthood. And I think society has this terrible habit of when children reach a certain age, they're expected to grow up really fast. And suddenly, playing pretend or make-believe seems juvenile and childish. And I think that's silly. And so, there seems to be a very hard line.
That's why board games are there for adults,
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And why I love Dungeons and Dragons so much, and why I'm thrilled to see the resurgence of all these tabletop RPGs, because they're giving adults permission to play pretend.
Yeah, because we kind of need that outlet after all these stressy things,
We do, yeah. I mean, our day-to-day lives are stressful. That's true for everybody. And there's a reason why games like World of Warcraft are so popular in Second Life. You create an avatar, and you can do all of these things. You can be a successful warlord in World of Warcraft, where in real life you might just, who knows what you're doing. You might be unhappy in your job. And that's why I love Dungeons and Dragons as well. And I love, there's so many more schools now that Dungeons and Dragons is starting to become more socially accepted, that are starting Dungeons and Dragons clubs, and they're running games for kids in elementary school. And they've done, there's been a lot of studies done that prove that Dungeons and Dragons help with social skills, building, real life interactive skills with people, because you are exercising those in game that you can then take to the real world. Mm-hmm. There's this terrible idea around gaming in general that I think certain people look at it like it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I
that's
remember.
Just not true.
Yeah, during the early '80s and the late '70s, there was that push toward Dungeons and Dragons will lead your kids to Satanism or whatever.
Right,
it's the whole Phil Phillips, Gary Greenwald thing.
Oh, of course, of course. It's just sad. It's sad.
But going back to slightly happier things here, of course. We were talking about books and literacy. Is there any particular books that you're reading currently that you'd like to talk about, or have you also looked into audiobooks too? A lot of voice actors also do audiobooks.
That's true. I tend to I lean a little bit more towards being a reader. Mm-hmm. I appreciate audiobooks, and there's certain things. I read Tina Fey's book, Bossy Pants, which is really great. I just finished that not too long ago, and she has a section that she did. If you do the ebook version, mm-hmm. she has a chapter that she's read that's an audiobook version, and that was super fun to hear Tina Fey read her book. So I think it depends for me. If it's the author of the book doing the reading, then I think I'll tend to lean towards it more. But I just enjoy having the words run through my brain, so I can give them my own filter.
Voice,
right? My own voice, exactly. But yeah, Tina Fey Bossy Pants is really great. I just downloaded. I haven't really gotten very far. speaking of gaming, and how gaming's not a waste of time and how gaming can save the world, Jane McGonigal's book, Super Better. And Jane McGonigal, for anyone who's not familiar with her, she's a game designer, and she's got her doctorates in design, I think. And she has done a few TED Talks that are amazing. That's all about how gaming can save the world.
Yeah,
and she
that's
talks
like world peace through shared popular culture.
Totally. Same type of concept. And she talks about how so many people spend hours, especially in like World of Warcraft. Some people spend almost as much time on World of Warcraft a week as they do their day jobs. And so her question was, what skills are we building? And how can we use these people who are investing so much time into gaming to better the real world? And so her book, Super Better, it kind of goes about that, on how you can take the concept of gaming and enhance your life and almost attribute a game to your life in that way. So she's phenomenal. I highly recommend you check out anything that she does. She's great.
Excellent. And speaking of like taking that game and applying it to real life or so, one thing I've noticed at a lot of conventions is there is a lot of really great positive energy that people have at these conventions and such. And sometimes when people leave these conventions and go back to school, to work, to their just everyday normal life, they tend to lose that energy. They just can't seem to, when they deal with family or bullies or coworkers or whatnot. Do you have any suggestions on how people can take that energy from the convention, from their hobbies, and apply that to their everyday lives?
That is an excellent question. I'm a burner. I go to Burning Man every year, and that's one of the huge philosophies in Burning Man, that you take that positive energy and all of the cultural aspects that you've learned and loved, and the humanitarian aspects of it, and because there's always kind of a depression that you get when you have to go home, and I'm sure several people experience that here at cons, and especially when depending on who you are in your day-to-day life, maybe your love of anime and gaming isn't as socially accepted amongst your peers. So many people can come to conventions and events like this and feel at home, feel, I guess, once again, normal in quotes, even though nothing's normal, for lack of a better term, I guess. So yeah, there's definitely a certain kind of sadness and that can come with feeling like you have to return back to the real world. And I've learned that if you can take the things that you've learned and loved, one of the things that I learned about myself at Burning Man was I enjoy wearing funky clothes. And I would dress crazy there and then would come back and just wear jeans and a t-shirt. And it's like, man, if I want to wear like a vinyl skirt covered in like pink bows, like, who cares? I should do that. It makes me happy, and I'd say find the things, just when you go home, meditate. Like, what made me happy here? Like, man, I loved dressing in my brony costume. Like, damn, that made me so fulfilled. And then take that and figure out how just slowly you can just start incorporating that into your day-to-day life.
Like having things that remind you.
You, exactly. You don't have to go crazy. I'm not saying dress in cosplay every day, because I don't think that would make anyone happy.
Yeah.
But, if you, there's so much going on with like the closet cosplays, if you want to try and pull a closet cosplay of Vegeta together at the last minute, like, do it. If it makes you happy. I think so many people get so concerned with what other people think of them and what they're going to judge them, and then eventually you grow up and realize that no one was thinking of you to begin with. So don't worry about it. Like, you do you, and find what makes you happy here, and then slowly try and just bring those little aspects into your day-to-day life. That's what I've done.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the interview. Before we head on out, is there anything you'd like to promote or pimp or anything?
Well, let's see. I guess since I can now officially announce it as of yesterday, so you'll be the first one to get this in terms of on press and recording it. I am a few voices in Fire Emblem Fates.
Oh yeah, I already pre-ordered that special edition of that. We'll be doing an unboxing of that when it comes out.
Awesome, love it. So I'm a character named Effie in there, in Orboro, and I'm not going to spoil the other ones. Okay. You'll just have to wait and see.
Oh yeah.
But
are they on the Conquest or on the Birthright section?
I'm not telling.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yes. I'm pretty partial to Effie though. So if you come across Effie, I think she can be
recruit
like
that character and don't let him die.
Don't let her die. She's
Do it
great.
for her.
She's great. I loved her. She was a blast to record. So I can finally announce that as of yesterday. I think only because someone else leaked it. But hey, it wasn't me.
Actually, it was on. I think Nintendo Everything or something had the full cast list.
Okay, so it wasn't like a leak necessarily.
No, it was.
They did it on purpose.
They're like, hey guys, this. Or like.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and of course check out Critical Role on Thursday nights on Geek and Sundry's Twitch channel.
Excellent.
7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
And where can people find that and find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Marisha_Ray. You can follow Critical Role on Twitter at Critical Role, or go to geekandsundry.com and you can catch up on all of our back episodes on that website.
Excellent. Thank you very much for this
you.
interview. This has been your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, here at Colorado Anime Fest 2016 with
Marisha Ray. Thank you guys so much.
And until the next episode comes out, you are now caught up.
I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash.